Good afternoon, my conscious co-creators. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. I am very, very pleased that you're all here with me today. We have another important show in store for you today with a wonderful guest who's also a friend. And I look forward to bringing her on in just a moment for actually a really important conversation. But first, of course, we have my blog post from a couple of years ago. And this one, I think, is rather an important one. And this blog post is entitled, Sharing Our Feelings Can Be the Scariest Thing We Do. Being honest with someone is not always easy, especially when it comes to our feelings. Sharing how we feel can be scary. That fear can stop us from opening up, from saying what we truly feel, and from being authentic. To share with someone how we feel about them opens us up to many possibilities, like being rejected or being ridiculed, maybe even being taken advantage of. And there is the very real possibility, excuse me, of what we say being used against us. These are all very real and reasonable outcomes. So we are right to be scared to open up, to tell someone how we really feel, for we do not know how it is going to be received or responded to. On the other hand, there are also many other positive possibilities, such as the other person responding in kind, finding out they like us as much as we like them, or that they appreciate us as much as we appreciate them. It can give us a chance to deepen the relationship, even start a new one. There are so many potential outcomes that we cannot even imagine. So, what are we to do? Is it worth the risk? Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. One thing is for certain, if we do not share how we feel, we will never know. Perhaps the most important thing about sharing how we feel, even when it scares us, is the act of sharing itself, of showing the universe that we are open to what may come as a result. Maybe being authentic and real is its own reward. For the more we share how we feel when we are uncertain of how the other person will respond, the more courage we build up to share. And one thing is for sure, the more we share, the more likely we are to eventually find the outcome we desire, or unexpected outcomes that are even better than we could have imagined. The key is that we do not know what the future holds for us and what the other person is truly feeling. Once we open up to them, we make it safe for them to open up to us. Imagine what a world we would live in if everyone did that. So I wrote this blog post a couple of years ago after working with a client. And this client, he was a little he was a little hurt. He was a little sad uh, because he had finally built up the courage to share with a friend of his, a woman he had known for a while, who he felt a really strong connection with, felt they really got along well, and he finally shared with her that, he'd really like to have something more, and unfortunately she did not feel the same way. And so he was like, "Oh my God, why did I do this? Now she doesn't, act the same way to me, and was it worth it? And all these thoughts running around his head. And so we worked together, and in working with him, what I came to realize is that actually how someone else responds when we share something. And look, this doesn't have to be about sharing something with someone who you want to be intimate with. It could be sharing something with a family member. It could be sharing something with a coworker. It could be sharing something with a colleague or just a friend. But what gets us in trouble is the attachment to how we want them to respond. Yet when we practice sharing our true feelings, sharing what's going on inside of us with another human being, that act of sharing is actually sometimes the most important thing we can do. That it's not about how the other person responds. It's not about whether they agree with us or not or disagree with us. It's not about them seeing the world the same way. It's not even about them liking us or not. It's really about us owning our truth and having the courage to share that truth with another human being. Now, look, I get it. This is not easy. It doesn't feel good when we share our feelings with someone and they don't feel the same way. I'm there with you. I totally get it. I've experienced that myself. And at the same time, the more we shy away from sharing because we're afraid of that outcome, because the thought of them not responding the way we would want them to respond um, is too great a risk for us. I get that. I totally get that. But then what kind of life are we leading? And and then if we start falling into that habit of not sharing how we feel with someone, what kind of example are we setting? What kind of energy are we cultivating within ourselves? So uh, uh, it just when I was working with this person, I just my heart went out to him. I really understand how he felt, and at the same time, I still I still believe that taking the risk and sharing how we feel with another human being, how we truly feel, the things we're really afraid to say, practicing saying those things, it actually, in the end, even if the response is not the one we want, and even if it stings and we go, ouch, it's still one of the most important things that we can do. Now, this does not mean that we have to share everything with everybody. I do believe that we need to practice discernment, that not everybody deserves our truth in a way. It's knowing what's appropriate and what's the right thing to share with the right person. But that kind of wisdom comes with practice. And so maybe sometimes we overshare. I'm totally guilty of that. But over time, we get to learn who's safe to share what with. So yeah, you don't have to share everything with your best friend or your partner or your coworker or your sibling or your parent. You share what's appropriate to share with them. And then notice how they respond. And notice if they happen to start sharing more with you. Because ultimately, that's what this practice is for. It's just getting us to talk to each other more. Because I guarantee you, there are people in your life who feel a certain way about certain things that they have not told you about. And you have no clue that that's the way they feel. And when you're the one who's brave enough to step forward and share something very deep and personal yourself first, just might open them up to sharing something that they've been afraid to share with you. And you might be really, really surprised at the outcome of all of that. So that's my blog post for this week. The title again is Sharing Our Feelings Can Be the Scariest Thing We Do. And of course, you can always find my blog post on my personally branded website, theconsciousconsultant.com, as well as on the station's website at talkradio.nyc/blog. All right, now it is my extreme pleasure to welcome to the show Rachel Heslin, author, speaker, and student of the psychology of identity and human experience for more than 4 decades. Rachel is the author of Navigating Life, 8 Different Strategies to Guide Your Way, and Rituals of Release, How to Make Room for Your New Life, both available in multiple languages. Her TEDx talk, A Defense of Victim Mentality, I love that, turns condemnation into compassion in just 6 minutes and hints at the kind of thinking she brings to the territory most of us prefer to avoid. This month brings the release. It's still this month, right? The
Yes,
release.
it's available for pre-order at the moment.
All right. Her newest book, Hearts Are Meant to Be Broken, A New Approach to Grief, a book that could not be arriving at a more needed moment in time. Rachel's exploration of grief did not come from theory. It came from paying close attention to what happens in a life when loss of any kind is not given room to move through us.
Mm.
In her new book, she pushes back on the tidy stages and cultural timelines we have inherited and offers instead an approach that honors grief as something we are meant to feel deeply rather than manage efficiently. Her title carries the whole thesis. Hearts are meant to be broken, not as damage, but as opening. Loss, when met rather than avoided, can crack us into a wider, more honest, more tender version of ourselves. Welcome to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Rachel.
Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction.
Yes,
I just, I actually wanted to start by um, responding to your blog post that you shared
sure.
because when you and I first met, I went through something very similar to that, where I had been hiding something for a very long time because I was afraid of how other people would react to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized how much of my energy had been blocked, had been used to hide. So
Hmm.
at the point that I stood up and said, "Hey, this is what's really going on inside me. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what I hope for," and allowed myself that vulnerable expression, it was such a relief to let go of pretending.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. So it's such an important uh, thing to look at.
Wonderful,
Thank you for
wonderful.
bringing it up.
So I'm curious, what kind of got you started on this path of being an author, a speaker, of sort of taking normal concepts and sort of turning them on their head? And I'm definitely going to ask you about your
Yeah.
TEDx talk, but yeah, what got you started on this path?
Well, I blame my father. Uh, he's a clinical psychologist, and part of his learning strategy was when he would learn something, he would come home and teach me. This meant that I was introduced to neurolinguistic programming concepts when I was 9.
Wow.
So when I say it's been over 4 decades, yes, I am older than I look, but I did also start very young.
Yeah.
In addition to looking at the world a little bit differently because of that, because it was so young, it created a platform on which everything else kind of was built around.
Mm,
I'm very curious, and I want to know, why is it that two people can be in exactly the same situation and respond completely differently?
yeah. Yeah.
Why do I do things that I don't want to do? Whether that's caving into other people and don't want to say no because of whatever
Mhm.
reasons, or why is there something that I want to do, but I watch myself do things that look like they're self-sabotaging?
Mm,
So those, I'm more interested in questions than answers,
mhm.
because I think that really good questions can spark ideas
Yeah.
that create new questions. And I believe life is supposed to be an exploration.
Mhm.
It's a learning experience.
Mhm.
I do have certain premises that I work from. One of
Mhm.
them is, as we are having this human experience, it is not possible for us to fully comprehend capital T truth. It's just too
Mm,
complex. There are too many factors involved.
mm,
Therefore, I try to create models that are consistent with my observations and they're useful.
mhm.
By useful, I mean, do they get me where I want to go? I mean,
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of the idea that all models are wrong, but some of them are useful.
Yes.
And the corollary to that is that at the point that a model conflicts with lived experience, it's a lot less useful.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Right.
So, what can you do to shift it?
Right.
Now, one of the things that I got from my dad was a premise that he got from one of his mentors, a guy by the name of Milton Erickson,
Ah,
who some people consider the one of, like, the father of hypnotherapy.
yes.
And the idea is that everything we do comes from a positive intention,
Mm,
and that we do have everything we need within us to have magnificent lives. But sometimes we can't access those resources. And sometimes those positive intentions come up with maybe not so positive results because of the stories we tell ourselves.
yeah. And the meaning we make from those stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a lot of my work has been, as I have navigated my own life, looking at stories. What are the stories I want to tell? What are the
Mhm.
stories that I don't even realize are stories? What
Mm,
is the water that I'm swimming in that I don't even recognize?
mm,
And how can I become more aware of the limitations I've been placing on myself?
mm,
As I go through this, I document my observations and my experience. And that is where the books and the speaking come from.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though we each have our own experience, and I know that what I'm going through is not going to apply to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
I also know that I have a proof of concept of one. It worked for me.
Right.
So if it worked for me, there is a chance there's at least one other person out there that this would also be useful in helping them navigate their own life.
Mhm. So, I want to get into the your new book about hearts are meant to be broken. But before we do that, I'm really, really curious about your TEDx talk, defense of victim mentality, because most people are like, doing everything and anything to get someone out of quote unquote victim mentality. So the title has me very curious, and I would love to just touch upon that before we get into grief. So
See,
what do you mean
okay.
by like defending victim mentality?
This is actually a perfect example of having the premise that everything has a positive intent.
Mm,
Where it came from is looking at victim mentality and
mm,
trying to figure out under what circumstances might it be considered beneficial.
mm,
And that's what I talk about in my talk. First of all, I go through and explain if someone grows up in these circumstances, it is understandable that they would see themselves as a victim. Whether there's a lot of chaos, um, they're not sure what's happening. That's how they learned that how the world works. So it makes sense.
mhm.
Then I went from there. It's like, and then where might it be useful? Do you want me to give away the spoiler or do you want to make people go watch it? Well, it's basically I mean it's only 6 minutes long. You could go watch and see how I get through it. But the example I came up with is if somebody has something terrible happen to them,
Mhm,
especially if they're really young when it happens,
mhm,
they may think that they have a choice. Either they are a victim or
mhm.
they deserved to have something awful happen to them.
Ah,
When you think you only have those two choices of
mm,
understanding a situation, seeing yourself as a victim is actually more empowering than
mm.
believing that you deserve to have awful stuff happen to you.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Interesting. Interesting.
And to give it context, this is part of a mosaic. It's not, oh, well, therefore it's okay to see yourself as a victim. It is,
Right.
this is an important piece of information to be taken into consideration if you
Mm,
truly want to help someone grow beyond a victim mentality. You
mhm,
first need
mhm,
to know what their fears are. What
mm,
are they trying to accomplish by clinging to their
mm,
victimhood? And how can you work with them to move through it?
mm,
It's kind of like addictions. You
mhm.
can say, yes, you're drinking yourself to death. You shouldn't do that. But if you don't address the reason why they started using alcohol as a coping mechanism or a tool, then it's not as easy to get them to move through and beyond it.
Right. Right. What I like about that perspective is it's a much more compassionate view why people develop that kind of attitude, and that as opposed to judging people and making them wrong for feeling that they're a victim, it's having compassion and understanding why they might have uh,
Yeah.
fallen into that trap. So thank you.
I
That's
my
beautiful.
my absolute favorite part of having given that talk is the comments that are on it. And
Uh,
the number of people who are saying things like, this totally makes sense. I'm seeing myself in a new light. Or the
Mm,
people who are saying, I used to be really mean to people who see themselves as victims, and this is changing how I look at it.
mm,
And right there, it's like it was worth it.
yeah, yeah,
It's so satisfying.
yeah, yeah. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, we've got a few minutes before our break. I would like to just get into, or at least touch upon, your new book coming out, Hearts Are Meant to Be Broken. What was the spark of inspiration that got you to decide to write a book around grief?
Well, the first one actually happened over 10 years ago. And
Ah,
again, it was that curiosity thing.
mm-hmm,
I had met someone who was this amazing shaman and musician, and I discovered that he actually lived very close to my parents. And he
mm,
had done a concert, and I was really looking forward to taking my parents and my husband to go see him and meet him. And then he was killed.
ooh,
It was shocking. It was out of the blue. He was on a pilgrimage in Egypt.
mm,
And he and his traveling companions were in a van that was mistaken by the Egyptian government as belonging to rebels.
ooh,
And I was both devastated and confused.
mm,
I had only met him once. Why was I so upset over somebody that I didn't even know? It was like, not
mm,
only did I feel like I didn't have a reason, it was almost like I didn't have a right to grieve.
mm,
And I got curious and realized what I was actually grieving was the future I thought we would have together. That wasn't going to happen.
yeah, yeah.
So that was the start of it.
Wow, wow. That's quite a Oof, that's quite a powerful start to it. And I can totally relate because I know not that long ago, someone I knew committed suicide. And I knew her, but I didn't really know her that well. There are other people I know who knew her much better than I did, but it also brought up a lot of grief and anger and sadness for me. Um, but it wasn't just about her taking her own life, but it was also what it triggered in me and the memories I have of things that happened to me and friends I'd known before who committed suicide, or and how the energy around suicide, how that affected many people I know. So it brought up a lot within me that was only partially related to her taking her life. So it's interesting how when these things happen, when we encounter these very extreme emotional situations, that sometimes our reaction doesn't make sense in the moment, but when we actually sit with it and give it some time and some breath, that the truth of why we're having such a strong reaction can actually come to us, and then things start to make more sense.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's get into what do you mean by hearts are meant to be broken, and let's talk about this new approach to grief. Okay?
Excellent.
Wonderful. So, everyone, please stay tuned. You're listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. We do this every Wednesday, 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, live right here on talkradio.nyc and all over social media. And we'll be right back with our guest, Rachel Heslin, in just a moment. Are you a spiritual seeker? Are you interested in expanded states of reality? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will dive into these topics with authors, teachers, researchers, and guides. Tune in at our new time, Wednesdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's the Conscious Consultant Hour, Wednesdays, 12 noon Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
So, Rachel, you had this experience that you felt this grief, this loss for someone who you didn't even know that well. How did that help you create this new approach towards grief?
It wasn't a linear journey.
Yeah.
I did a lot of research and interviews and looking at what other people had said about grief. Discovered psychology calls it the assumptive future, which is how we
Mm,
assume things are going to be. And I started
mm,
writing the book, and it was kind of clunky.
hmm
And I wasn't, it was very stilted. It sounded like I was trying to be my dad. So I set it aside and I actually took a left turn and started writing fiction just for fun.
Ah,
And what that did is it helped me tap back into my ability to convey the experience of being human,
mm,
which was a very important part of this whole process. When the pandemic shutdown occurred, I started writing again.
mm,
And there were all of these things just on a global level, so much loss, so many things breaking down. And again, I got a stopping point because there were certain aspects of loss that I had not personally experienced.
mm,
I'm very intuitive, I'm very receptive, I'm very observant, but all those things can only take you so far.
hmm
Then in August of 22, my husband had a heart attack and died.
mm.
And all of a sudden, I had all of this rich material to incorporate into the book. It really, in some ways, at that point, the book became my guiding star.
Mm,
I knew that, well, it's like I said before, so much of my work comes from my own experience.
hmm
So the two things that really moved me through the process myself were my kids,
hmm
because it was so important that I modeled healthy grieving for them,
Ah,
and this book because I wanted to help others.
mm,
People talk about the uh, Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, and we
yeah.
can go on how they're not. I actually refer to them as expressions of grief.
Okay.
There's a sixth one that her research partner, David Kessler, pointed out that he calls making meaning.
Uh,
And that's when, after somebody has died or after something terrible has happened, you honor that memory by doing something moving forward.
mm,
And in some ways, this book became part of my making meaning process.
okay.
And
And
yeah,
so
there's
what did you discover about approaching grief from this hugely emotionally charged situation that I would say either surprised you or caused you to go, "Oh,
Well, the biggest one is something that I actually haven't seen elsewhere, is the
Mm.
difference between what I call cognitive versus somatic grief.
Ah, yeah.
And I first noticed this. My grandmother passed earlier. She had passed in March of 22.
Mm-hmm.
Cognitive grief is all of the stories, all of
Mm.
the coulda, woulda, shouldas, all
Mm-hmm.
the fighting against it, the
Mm.
regrets, the anger, the
Mm.
my future should have been this and it's not, the
Mm-hmm.
stories of what we thought would be. All of that comes under the heading of cognitive grief.
Mm.
Somatic grief is completely different
Mm.
and lives in the body itself.
Right. Right.
Somatic grief will is a wave. It will
Mm.
come in, take you out, drop you to your knees, come through, and then pass, and it dissipates.
Mm.
It is something that cannot be rationalized. It can simply be felt.
Right.
Yet one
Right.
of the things I say, and also I differentiate between the grief experience from the grief process. The grief
Okay.
experience is describing here's everything we're going through on all the various permutations of it. The grief process is the reconciliation between what we thought our future should be and how it actually is.
Mm. Mm.
And I think that was a parenthesis. I can't remember what I was saying. So
That was good. That was good enough. Um, I, I'm curious. Your title is Hearts Are Meant to Be Broken. What do you mean by that?
I mean that as human beings, we most thrive when we are moving towards something, whether
Mm.
the dreams, the expectations, the goals that are pulling us forward through life.
Mm.
At the same time, it doesn't always happen.
Right.
Life doesn't the whole God laughs, whatever,
Right.
man plans,
Man
God
plans,
laughs thing.
God
It's God
laughs.
laughs.
Yes.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen. Now, there are a couple ways that people could respond to that.
Hmm.
They could either say, oh, well, it doesn't matter. And life just becomes a checklist of going
Hmm.
forward. Or they'll say, it hurts too much. I'm never going to dream again.
Mm.
And both of those responses or reactions cut
Hmm.
us off from being fully alive.
Yeah.
We need, and this is where I talk about models,
Hmm.
and everything has a positive intention.
Hmm.
I believe we have an internal process to reconcile these two truths that we
Hmm.
need dreams and they fall apart, and
Hmm.
that process is grief. The
Mm.
way you described it in the introduction is perfect in that we constantly need to break open,
Right.
whether you're talking about acorns or caterpillars.
Yeah.
If you want to get to the next stage, something has to break.
Yeah.
We're a constant process of letting go. This is interesting. The original subtitle for the book was The Intrinsic Resilience of Grief. But
Ah.
that wasn't really what I wanted to say
Right.
because resilience implies a bouncing back.
Right.
And the
Right.
truth is that if a loss is big enough, it transforms you. You
Mm.
will never again be the
Mm.
person you were before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh,
that's not a bug, it's a feature.
yes. I'm curious if someone listening today, and lately I've been hearing of a lot of people losing friends, relatives, some expected, some suddenly. If someone is listening to this and they're dealing with some grief in their life, how would you recommend they approach it that might be a more supportive way of approaching grief than what we're used to?
The number one, I guess, first step is to become aware of where they are shaming themselves for how they feel.
Ah, okay.
There are so many societal shoulds about feelings. And it's neat that this actually ties into your blog entry
Yeah.
at the introduction.
Yes, they tend to do that. I just taking them in order, but somehow they seem so apropos.
They do, because feelings, I believe feelings are sacred.
Hmm.
At the same time, I separate, I'm going to go off on a tangent here. I do think it is useful in the situation. I have something I call the agency framework. And
Hmm.
the purpose of it is to help people regain a sense of control in their lives.
Hmm.
Considering everything going on in the world,
Hmm.
this has been coming to the surface a lot.
Yeah.
And it's really easy because there are only three steps. The
Hmm.
first is to acknowledge your feelings. The
Hmm.
second is to examine your thoughts.
Hmm.
And the third is to take responsibility for your actions.
Hmm.
The reason I have found it so effective to separate these out into separate categories
Hmm.
is it makes them easier to address. I talk about
Okay.
this in the book as well, that grief is not a feeling. Grief is a constellation of concepts and expressions and feelings and thoughts and just a melange
Hmm.
in response to loss.
Ah,
But things are a lot easier to work through when we can identify the separate threads. Very
okay.
often, our thoughts and feelings can feel like they're entangled, but they're
Yes.
actually separate. And when you honor them separately, it makes it a lot easier to go, oh, okay. So instead of
Can you give us an
just, yeah,
example
okay.
of that? Like maybe from your own life when you lost your husband? What
Oh
was an
my goodness.
example? Like what was the feeling versus what was the thought?
I mean, the really obvious one is it shouldn't be like this.
Hmm.
We, Sean and I had a very challenging relationship. We were
Okay.
mirrors for each other, so we're constantly pushing each other's
Ah,
buttons.
okay.
But there was a deep connection.
Hmm.
And we had finally, after a quarter century, found our way back to each other.
Hmm.
And the kids were turning 18 and graduating high school, and he and I had started dating again.
Ah.
So for this to happen now, after 25 years of struggle,
Hmm.
um, it wasn't fair.
Hmm.
It really wasn't.
Hmm.
I mean, looking at uh, if we want to take it through the agency framework, the feelings were anguish and frustration, regret that we hadn't gotten our acts together sooner, and gratitude that we had found our way back to each other before he passed. Examining the thoughts was all of the coulda, shoulda, wouldas,
Hmm.
and then the taking the responsibility for my actions looks like choosing to focus and strengthen the gratitude portion, that we were able to find our way back to each other,
Yeah.
that I felt so validated that, yes, this is the guy I chose to marry. And I
Mm,
was right in my decision to do so.
mm, mm,
Taking responsibility for what I do going forward. What can I learn from the regrets?
mm.
I mean, the TEDx talk, my husband had a difficult childhood. And although he did not experience um, the what I allude to in the talk, he was the basis. He was why I asked the question, because there were so many times I got frustrated because he kept blaming everybody else. And
Ah,
it forced me to go in and say, well, hold on, what's really going inside?
mm,
And that's when I realized it was the little kid in him who was
mm-hmm,
terrified that there was something wrong with
mm-hmm.
him.
Right.
And it opened my heart. So I chose again, bringing back the making meaning.
Mm,
That TEDx talk is a love letter to my husband,
mm.
because I was unable to support him sooner.
Ah,
I want to support others instead
got it.
going
Got
forward.
it. Yeah, I mean that's hard when you've worked so long and so hard at something, in this case a relationship, and things finally get better, and then it feels like the rug got pulled out from underneath you, and it's like, what? Wait, no, like this isn't supposed to happen now. It's supposed to happen later because things are just getting good. Like, how can this happen now?
Do you know what's funny? Part of the
Mm,
examining thoughts part of it is I went through and reevaluated our relationship, like going back to the beginning, looking at what was happening from the lens of who I am now,
ah,
and looking at all the things that felt hurtful at the time.
hmm,
But again, going back, had a positive intention.
ah.
What I discovered is I actually had a much better marriage than I had realized at the time I was going through it. It was just kind of clumsily executed
Yeah.
because we were like just tripping our way through it. Um, but yeah, it was even better than I had
Hmm.
thought at the time.
Hmm. No, that sounds like a true love letter to your husband.
Yeah.
Um, with your book, what do you hope people gain from it?
Relief.
Hmm.
I am hoping that people walk away with hope,
Hmm.
with confidence that they are actually so much stronger and more capable than they realize.
Right.
I want them to have more compassion for their experience. I want them to let go of some of the burdens they have been carrying, the guilt, the shame, the shoulds, and just put them down. Just let go and allow themselves to trust in themselves, because they truly are more capable than they realize, and they what they feel matters, what they experience matters, what they think matters. And it is important to honor their dreams
mm,
and make tiles. Use the picture I have is you take the tiles of your broken dreams and make a new mosaic.
mm, mm. And I also just want to point out that the grief around loss doesn't have to be just around a relationship. It could
Okay.
be around what many people are starting to experience now, a loss of a career, a loss of a business, a loss of a job, a loss of an opportunity. There are all kinds of losses that we can honor and we grieve. But, I think we have a tendency to think like the only real grief we feel is when we lose somebody important in our life. But there's so much more
Oh,
thing that
yeah.
kind of grief, isn't there?
It's back to what we are actually grieving is the
Mm-hmm.
assumptive future.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we thought our lives would be. This
Mm,
is why, uh, I mean, you have parents whose children are born with disabilities. The
mm,
child's right there, but there's a grief and there's a guilt for the grief.
mm.
Again, this is why I think it's so important to separate out the threads of the expression so
Yeah.
that it is okay to grieve what you thought the future would be, as long as you also cherish and have curiosity about what the new future might become.
Yeah. Right. Because this universe sometimes has a much better imagination for our life than we do.
Oh my goodness,
And
yes.
if we can remain open, the surprises that await us are far greater than anything we could have imagined.
Oh, yes. I mean, we see that looking at the, well, I mean, the world is burning down.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's transforming for sure.
it is. Um, there is a book that I have recommended to strangers on the street
Mm.
called Apocalypse: How Catastrophe Has Transformed Our World and Can Forge New Futures. And
Oh,
it's looking at the really long term. We're talking millennia. The
yeah.
author is Lizzie Wade. She's an archaeologist.
Ah, okay.
And she started out writing about climate change and
Ah,
how cities were buried and flooded and how societies changed, and looking at the Mayan Empire and how it broke down, and just looking at things, seeing what is going on right now. It helps to look at the larger evolution of humanity.
mm,
Again, multiple threads.
yeah.
There is so much loss.
Mm,
It is worthy of grief at
mm,
everything that is breaking down. There is so much uncertainty
yep,
in the world.
yeah.
And I'm thinking of when the hurricane swept through North Carolina a couple years ago.
Yeah, and devastated Asheville.
Yeah, and I had friends who lived there
Yeah,
who were so uplifted that amidst the death and destruction, how many people came
came
together
together. Mhm.
as neighbors. And I do believe that as we focus on connecting with our common humanity, that together we can create a more collaborative, a
Mm,
more compassionate and more generative future for humanity that
mm,
supports us all.
yeah, yeah. Amen to that, sister. Amen. Rachel, before we sign off, if people want to learn more about you, learn more about your work, your books, and your writings, where can they find you online? How do they reach out to you?
My website is thefullnessofyourpower.com.
Hmm.
Um, the book has its own website, which is heartsaremeanttobebroken.com. And from there, reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Mm. And do you offer any services to people, or you just do speaking and writing?
At at the moment, I'm primarily focused on speaking and writing.
Okay.
Once in a while, I work with people. I may work with people in the future,
Hmm.
but like I said, I'm more about questions than answers.
Yes, the answer. Got it.
I
Got
love
it.
sparking people.
Yes, wonderful. Well, I hope today's conversation has sparked something in our audience and that people can perhaps take a different perspective on grief. So thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come on the show and share your perspectives. It was truly wonderful to hear your story and to hear how this all came about. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This went really fast. It was
Yes.
wonderful.
Yeah, people think an hour is a long time. It's like that. So thank you. And of course, thank you, my loyal listeners, for tuning in each week. Without you, there is no show. And don't forget, if you did miss any part of today's show, you can always catch the replay on talkradio.nyc. And on your favorite social media platform, you can find the Conscious Consultant Hour on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitch. Of course, and as well as on your favorite podcasting platform, Apple, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon. Thank you all for tuning in today. I hope you got something out of this show. Take care, everybody. We will talk to you all next week.